I remember when this movie was announced, and when it was announced, people looked at it and they saw the combination of Michael B. Jordan and Denzel Washington, and immediately this ended up like in the Oscar race. And it hadn't, the sight unseen, like people just, because Michael B. Jordan is just assumed at some point in his life will get an Oscar nomination. And Denzel Washington, he's directed Antoine Fisher, The Great Debaters, Fences, and now A Journal for Jordan. And yep, we're going to talk about that life choice. I'm Mac from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and this is a review of A Journal for Jordan. So I'm a blind film critic, and so basically I'm going to be talking about audio description. If you don't know what that is, learn. That's what I'm here for, is to teach you and educate you. But first, we got to talk about the film. So, what do we got? I don't know what to do with this film. It's based on a true story, and there was a real guy, and he was a soldier, and I feel really bad saying like negative things about this film, so I'm going to talk around this film. So this film to me felt like an elevated Lifetime movie. It felt like something that you would see based on the novel by Nicholas Sparks, like that would be in the trailer. It doesn't feel like it's directed by Denzel Washington at all. Like, it feels like he let somebody else direct it and then put his name on it. Like, it's so unlike anything he's done before. It's even unlike The Preacher's Wife. It's this really weird sort of anomaly. It's not terrible. It's just, it's its own thing. Like I said, I really don't want to like, because it's like, these are real people. Like, there was a real guy, named Charles, and he had a girlfriend, and they had a kid named Jordan, and he wrote this book to his kid, and the kid did his things, and then he wrote a book, and then they made a movie about it. And it's like, how do I say that that's not a good story? Like, how do I say that this story that these people have actually lived is not a good story? Like, I wanted to complain about the progression of the story. There's a moment in the story where it's clearly in the 90s, and she uses as an excuse Nora. I feel like that's the main character's name. Uses an excuse to get Charles to drive her somewhere, that she left her cell phone back in her hotel room. And I'm like, cell phones back in the 90s when we weren't texting weren't that big of a, like, if you had left your cell phone in your room, I don't think that anybody would have gone back for it, because cell phones back then were more for like on the go, like when you're running around, and less for just to have it on you because you can do so many other things with it. Like nowadays, like if we leave our cell phone, it's like, oh my God, where'd my cell phone go? Like if I'm in the other room, I feel like I have to go get my phone. But that's not what this is. This is, she's in the 90s. She needs her cell phone to be with her. Why? Like that should have been such a terrible excuse to go back to the hotel room. Oh, I forgot my cell phone. It's like, it's the 90s. Not everybody even has a cell phone yet. Cell phones didn't even really break out until sort of around, like, I want to say 2000, probably, starting into that. Then you started seeing more and more people were having cell phones, and then we started texting, and then it just exploded, and then everybody sort of had a cell phone. Like, people had cell phones. I'm not going to say it wasn't like an invention, and people have had cell phones since the 80s. But as far as their, proliferation to society, the 90s were not a time for their proliferation. I know she works at the New York Times, but I don't know. I don't know that she would have gone back for her cell phone. I don't know that that's a realistic thing. But I feel feel weird criticizing it because maybe that really did happen. And maybe Charles was like, oh yeah, we gotta get you your cell phone. I know it's like 1997, but we gotta make sure you have that flip phone on you. You know, a giant flip phone with a massive battery, which I don't even need to see the phone because I remember what phones were like back then. I'm old enough to remember what those phones, they were huge. They're gigantic. Of course, our phones now are pretty gigantic. But it's funny how we started making them smaller and smaller and smaller, and then we needed larger phones to be able to have them process all the things we're having them do nowadays. So now we have large phones again. But yeah. So it's fine. This movie is fine. I know people were they're disappointed in it because of what it could be. You know, because the reality is that this is a Denzel Washington directed film. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's why everybody's shitting all over this movie. If you want to know why people are all like, a journal for Jordan, it has nothing to do with the actual movie itself. It's that when you announce Michael B. Jordan starring in a Denzel Washington film, it's like people have been, like, waiting for that their whole lives, and then, like, this is the film that they do it for. And this is really just, it's really just it's like a Nicholas Sparks movie. It feels just like any one of his interchangeable romantic situations where two people meet, they fall in love, and there's some tragic situation that ends up splitting them apart, and there's some interesting twist in the story that makes the story interesting other than the fact that it's just this tragic love story. That's what all of his things are about. I mean, The Notebook was what? It was, they wrote a book and he read it to her and she came back to him through her Alzheimer's. This is a movie about a father who died in war and wrote this book for his son, and you know, this journal, and left it, and the kid's growing up and is reading this book, and we're flashing back and seeing how mom and dad met. That's what the movie is. It's really not that far from The Notebook. So for people to be like, ugh, this movie is, it just means it's not their thing. And that they were disappointed that this was the Michael B. Jordan, Denzel Washington collaboration. Because when you look at what the films that Denzel Washington chooses to direct, he usually chooses to direct films that have this like deep meaning and purpose to them. And this is like what attracted him to A Journal for Jordan. You know, even the score, it felt like they couldn't pay for somebody to write a good score to the film, so they paid for somebody who just usually does scores to just like random films. Like I was thinking about like Redeeming Love, for example, which was sort of like that low budget Christian movie that I saw. It actually came out after this, but it kind of felt like that. It kind of felt like just generic sort of music in the background that didn't really help or hinder the story. The actual songs that play in the film are far more interesting. The oldies that play. And by the way, it's not a spoiler that he dies. He's dead. Like at the beginning of the movie, it explains that this is the journal and that's what the movie's about. So he's dead for the entire movie. Michael B. Jordan's character is. But it's not like a twist, you know, later in the film. How he dies is like maybe, I guess, not told right away, but yeah, it's fine. The movie is fine. It's not great, it's not amazing, but it's okay. You know, is it the best Michael B. Jordan thing I've ever seen? No. Is it the best romance I've seen? No. Is it the best anything I've seen? No. It's like Denzel Washington's worst film as a director, but he also hasn't directed that many films, and everything he's directed up to this point has been like amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like this does not compare to Fences. Even though it's a real life story, and Fences is not. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I know I'm like telling like real life people that your life is not as important as the fake ones in Fences, but Fences, August Wilson's Fences, is more interesting and more important culturally than this is. It just is. This is fine. It's a fine story. It's a fine, true story. We get a lot of true stories made into films. But it could have been made by anybody. There's nothing in this film that suggested it was made by Denzel Washington. Not a single thing that feels like it's a Denzel Washington film, except his name is on it. And that is why everyone is who's disappointed with it. It's not because the film is bad, because it's not. It's that the film is average. And Denzel Washington does not direct average. He directs films with purpose, with greatness, that end up in the Oscar conversation, So that's where we're at with the Journal for Jordan. I thought the audio description was fine. I thought it was really well done. I didn't have any problems. Just really great audio description. Did a great job of describing all of the little details in the film, about what people were wearing when they're not wearing things, the little romantic cues between the couple that sort of made them cute. People being muscular, lots of comments about the way people look, their attractiveness or whatever, those kind of things. But, that's my, there's one thing, but it's a little too spoilery. It's a little bit much. There's one thing where I was like, I feel like that could have been described better, but I won't drop that in there. But there was one thing that I was like, but that would be the biggest spoiler I could possibly give you. It's fine. The movie's fine. I also don't know that anybody needs to see it, so I'm just sort of in the middle. It is literally average. I always talk about how my grading is based on the fact that C means average. That's what it always meant in the grading system of things when you get it in schools. But C is average. This feels like an average film. It means you could go either way with it. C for me is like right in the middle. I'm neither recommending nor am I saying don't watch this. I'm just putting it right in the middle. So it's do what you want with it. So my final grade for Journal for Jordan is C. I consider it to be just perfectly average. I think people's frustration is only based on the fact that Michael B. Jordan is the lead and that Denzel Washington is the director. If those had swapped and it was just someone else in the lead role and someone else directing, I bet this film would have a higher Rotten Tomatoes and a higher Metacritic. Even though Michael B. Jordan and Denzel Washington are better talents, I think what's leading a lot of people here is a disappointment factor. So it's that the bar was set too high. Like I said earlier, I remember this film was in Oscar conversations, sight unseen, based on the premise, Michael B. Jordan and Denzel Washington. People thought this thing was going to be in the Oscar race, and then they saw it and they realized what it was, and I think people were angry at it. And I think that's why there are bad reviews out there for it. I don't think it's because the film itself is actually inherently bad. So ignore the other critics. This film is just simply average, and that's why they're upset. Because they thought it was going to be amazing. So that's where we're at. Journal for Jordan, you might even like it. You might even, for people who this is their thing and they love like those Nicholas Sparks movies. There are people who love Lifetime movies and Hallmark Channel movies. This is your movie. You will love the shit out of this movie. If that is your thing, I'm going to tell you right now that my C average grade will skew upwards for you because that is your thing. Those are the kind of films that you like. You will end up liking this more than somebody else might, whose, favorite film is like The Witch, and they're like, I love A24 films. It's like, they're going to hate this movie. But if all you do is watch Hallmark Channel movies and Lifetime movies, then The Journal for Jordan is probably going to be, the best thing you've seen in years. I don't know. It all depends. It's all perspective. I'm just one person's opinion. I should never make or break anyone's decision. I'm just trying to help and guide, Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Journal for Jordan, C average. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, please like and subscribe. I love you guys. I'm trying to get more and more More and more of you. I want to multiply you all. And visit macthemovieguy.com for more reviews, and check out the audio description project for more movies that have audio description and how to watch them, where to watch them, what streaming service, that kind of stuff. But that's it for now. So go write a journal for whoever your kid is, or just your dog, someone. Go write a journal so it can be made into a movie.